Welcome back to CareCast, the podcast from Caresoft, the trusted government IT solutions provider. Subscribe to get the latest technology updates in the public sector. I'm Anthony Jimenez, your host from the Caresoft production team. On behalf of Caresoft and Fed Insider, we would like to welcome you to today's podcast, focused around improving cybersecurity in a hyper-connected world. Matthew Belovko, Supervisory Special Agent, FBI, Stephen Henry, Director of Auditing, Office of the Chief Inspector General, and Esteban Soto, Advisory Solutions Consultant, SailPoint, will discuss the state's progress in improving its own cybersecurity posture and strengthening local agencies' protections.
Let's kick off right away, and let's start off with, why don't you say a little bit more about yourself? We'll start with you.
All right. Hi. Yeah. Good afternoon, everybody. Stephen Henry. I am the Director of Auditing for the Office of the Chief Inspector General here at the Capitol. Usually I'm in a room with a lot more IG staff, right? I'm like worried I might get booed because I don't recognize too many faces out here. And usually people are not too happy to see the auditors, but luckily I see, I see some of my audit friends there. I see Ms. Heffron and Director Jones from DOA, but hope maybe a few auditors are just waiting here at the end. Oh, good to see other auditors. Again, I've been at the OCIG for a couple of years.
There's smiling people.
Good. Yeah, right. Well, that table actually is my mother and father-in-law who are interested in cybersecurity, who wanted to show up. So yeah, I know those people. So
outstanding. All right, Matthew.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Matthew Belovko. I'm a supervisory special agent with the FBI. So I've been with the FBI since 2009. Started in our Philadelphia field office where I worked a little bit of kind of everything. So I started off working counterterrorism, moved to counterintelligence, and started working the national security cyber. Took a transfer to El Paso, Texas, which is pretty far away from Disney, so I didn't stay there for too long. Came back to DC to work at our cyber division, where I was working APT groups and doing that. And now I'm down here in Jacksonville, so running a cyber squad, and I'm hoping to share some information.
You know, it's really interesting how you start off in counterterrorism. Folks don't realize how incredibly connected cybersecurity and counterterrorism actually are, and how one led to the other. What a great career.
Thank you.
What a path. Esteban, how about you?
Hey,
Besides just having moved to your new house.
Yeah. So I was actually unpacking yesterday, and I get a phone call saying that Frank, who was supposed to be on this chair, got sick. And they were like, can you be in Tallahassee tomorrow at 12? And I was just unpacking from my new house. So I was like, I have to find my suits. I found it in a box. So I'm happy to be here. But for the past decade, I've been working in the federal space, both civilian and DoD, implementing and consulting identity security solutions across some of our nation's most secure and important infrastructure. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Great. Well, welcome to all of you. And we're really looking forward to this. It's going to be a fun hour. So let's kick it off right away with you, Stephen.
All right.
So we are constantly trying to improve cybersecurity compliance, right? I mean, the Inspector General. I got to keep in compliance. Thank you. What metrics can we use to measure the effectiveness of our improvements?
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you for that question. Right. That is
right up your alley.
Yeah, right up the alley for what we do in offices of Inspector General. Again, when I first started in offices, most of my career I spent, some of it I was Ms. Heffron's mother was my supervisor for a long time at TVPR. So, yeah, right. So really a family affair here. So again, metrics and measuring compliance and determining whether operational things are working effectively. Program evaluation, that is essentially what we do and perhaps what we're most comfortable with. I don't know that I'm quite as comfortable with all the cyber stuff, but I am pretty comfortable with program evaluation and metrics. As we sometimes say, if it's not measured, it doesn't matter. However, over the years, we see a lot of things that are measured that just because it's measured doesn't necessarily mean that it matters, and not everything that matters really is measured. But in the cybersecurity space, I know that's one of the areas that I think that I have struggled with as part of the audits. So in 2021, legislation was passed that required offices of Inspector General to conduct cyber audits, essentially. And that is what we've been doing. This is our fourth go around, third go around. We're starting. Thank you for reminding me. So one of the things that we have been able to do this year is participate in some of the rulemaking workshops that our friends at Florida Digital Service have. Prior to that, though, and they are looking for some metrics to measure some of their effectiveness, and I'll talk about that in just a second. But again, this is right in our alley. As part of our statutory responsibilities in section 20.055, that we were required to look at validity and reliability of performance metrics. Validity, again, does it make sense for what the entity is doing? And reliability, does the math add up? Can it be repeatable, et cetera? So things like that.
How effective it is.
Exactly. So some of the things that Florida Digital Services is trying to do, and for a while there have been metrics. I always thought that it was kind of useless looking at things like network downtime, especially because in different agencies I worked at, that was calculated differently. And sometimes you'd be like, oh, well, they're maybe not calculating that completely accurately. However, some of the metrics that are initially proposed by Florida Digital Service and we in the audit space are happy to, again, look at that validity and reliability for those things, sort of fall under the following 4 categories. Financial performance, I wrote these down because I didn't want to miss them. Financial performance, customer experience, operational excellence, and employee development. I know I got to see sort of the tail end of the last session talking about some of that employee development. So also wrote down some of my favorite that they're proposing. I'll just go with a few of these lists. The average number of hours to recover from a security incident, the number of tabletop exercises conducted annually with leadership. Yeah, right. So I think some of these are great. The average number of days to detect incidents, the average number of days to fully contain an incident. And then again, on the employee development, the percentage of employees who report mock phishing emails within 5 hours, the average CPE credit hours earned per security employee, the average annual retention rate for security staff. So really exciting things that Florida Digital Service is planning.
You know, you bring up and there's a couple of things, the tabletop exercise, a lot of people forget about that. But if you don't practice your response, if you don't practice resilience, if you don't work at it, the first time you want to try it out is not when you have a real incident. That, believe me, having been there from the DoD side, from the military side, we do tabletop exercises all the time for everything. And the reason is that you want to know how to respond. Now, granted, I think everybody will agree is after your first 5 minutes or your first 10 things that you do within your checklist of your response, it all goes to hell and you have to work from there. But you know what? That first 5 minutes, that first 10 items that you're doing are the most important things that get you off the ground. People don't do tabletop exercise. Are you finding that in your audits? How are you finding as far as the tabletop exercise are concerned? Are you finding that an area of concern?
Yeah, one of the things I think that I was most excited to participate in this year, that Florida Digital Service rolled out a tabletop exercise for all 35 participating state agencies. And they asked us to sort of mix and match. So folks, for example, at Elder Affairs may have gone to a separate agency, maybe a similar Health and Human Services agency, to watch and do a tabletop exercise to see how the agency that they were observing was handling that. So some of those exercises lasted as long as 4.5 hours, and we had full participation. And that was the first time that tabletop exercises were rolled out to all of the state agencies. And I know we in IG staff learned so much there to kind of see what the folks behind the keyboard do and how they respond to such things. So I think it was a really valuable experience. And thanks so much for IG staff that participated in that, who took notes and led to some of the assessments.
That's outstanding. That is absolutely outstanding. So Matthew, what can the FBI do to help companies and agencies, okay, before they have a cyber incident?
That's a great question. And, one that I thought of a lot about before coming here. A lot of people think the FBI is somebody you call after an incident, and that's all we really do. And that's partially true because we're an investigative agency. So when you have an incident, big part of what the FBI does is we're going to come there, collect evidence, hopefully try and identify the bad guys, indict them and put them in jail. But there's a lot we can do beforehand. And some of that is just really the partnership. So one of the things I'd like to say, there's 3 things that I put. So having a partnership with the FBI can give you guys access to information, access to groups and training, and also peace of mind. And I joke a little bit with the peace of mind because we're really not going to be able to provide you peace of mind, but we'll get to that at the end. So like access to information. If you have a relationship with your local FBI office, have somebody at the office that you can call and talk to. If you see something on your network and you wanted to report it, even if it's not like a major hack, it's nothing, your firewall caught it, but you're just curious, like, all right, why was this IP doing this? Or this scan hit our network. I wonder if there's anything to it. reach out to your point of contact. We have access to data and records and information that you may not have. Often when I would do this with a company I worked really closely with in Pennsylvania, they'd say, hey, check out these IP addresses. They tried to log into our VPN over the weekend. I would do some checks and then realize that, okay, this was an advanced persistent threat actor that was trying to log into this network. Wasn't able to give all of the classified details of it, but I was able to let them know, all right, those IP addresses, that's something you should be concerned about and maybe look into it a little bit further. And then we were basically going back and forth with information sharing. So they'd go back, do some more research on the IPs. They'd say, hey, this IP was doing this and this. And, you know, it was a little bit of an information sharing. And that was the point, you know, process that I think companies and the FBI should be at. Where there's
And
that
you're also doing that, though, you're able to provide them access to resources to help them strengthen their network against those IP addresses and things, right?
So the FBI doesn't have a lot of access to the resources,
Point
but
to-
but the
point to-
federal government does, and we can point you guys exactly to resources that CISA has. You know, my office works really closely with CISA. There's a lot of times we have a CISA person on our cyber task force. We go out often, help with tabletop exercises at companies, different things like that, to help prepare companies for, you know, what happens if happens. The second point that I made, access to training and groups. So the FBI has a lot of different training opportunities and also the InfraGard program. I'm not sure, is anybody familiar with InfraGard here? Okay. So when I was in El Paso, one of my jobs there is I was the InfraGard coordinator for the El Paso division. And so what InfraGard is it's a private and public sector partnership with the US government. So we had all types of critical infrastructure that were located in and around the El Paso area, part of InfraGard. We'd meet monthly. They'd get presentations that they wouldn't necessarily have access to. They'd have opportunities to train through that. They'd have access to FBI flash messages and private industry notifications, joint cybersecurity advisories. So through the InfraGard, you'd have access to all of that information that could help protect your network. And some of the other things we have were training. We have a CISO Academy that we run couple times a year. So if you have a relationship with the FBI, we might be able to get you guys access to that CISO Academy. We also have Citizens Academy where you could come and learn about what the FBI is doing in the AOR. And peace of mind. So like I said, it's a little bit of a joke, but we would definitely recommend having the FBI in your incident response plans. So the peace of mind comes in when an incident happens, you don't have to be stressed out and go, who should I contact at the US government? You'll have that point of contact there. Just recently, we had a company that was victim of a ransomware attack. They knew who to contact. They contacted our private sector coordinator in the Jacksonville office. They immediately reached out to me. We got them in contact with an agent who was able to help them identify what ransomware variant had hit their network. We reached out to the field office that was working the case on that ransomware variant, was able to provide them with IOCs and other things that they could do to help see how far the ransomware had, what entry method was used. And not right away, but in some cases with ransomware, we actually do have some resources to help them with the ransomware. It took a little bit, but we were able to provide that company with the decryption key to help them get some of their data back. So
Sweet.
those would be the three reasons why I would say having a relationship with your local FBI office is something to do before an incident occurs.
And I tell you, man, and we brought this up earlier. I think Michelle mentioned it, Andrew mentioned it. It's about your relationships and building those relationships and being willing to build those relationships. You get resources that you don't have access to otherwise. All good points. Thanks a lot. So Esteban, how does one perform detection and remediation of threats in an environment where much of the user base access to services is from the edge? I mean, like the services, citizen services for the state of Florida,
Right.
Hello, lottery, you know, and those, I mean, how do you do it?
Yeah. I think it's a good question. As IT professionals, I think the last 10 years, we've seen an explosion in three main areas in our environment. Number one is the types of users that we need to manage. It's no longer just internal employees. We now have contractors, we have partners, constituents, customers that we need to manage. Number two is the types of devices, right? We have everything from government issued or company issued devices to we now have our customers, or they're bringing their own device. And number three is the different types of applications that we need to secure in our organization. It's no longer just our on-premise, homegrown, agency-created applications. We now have SaaS-based applications that allows us to really access our data and our resources from practically anywhere on the globe. Now, luckily, NIST has published some really good guidelines that we should look at. I'm just going to highlight them here, but I really do recommend, you going on Google, doing a Google search, downloading these PDFs. They make great weekend reads. But the first one was mentioned, you cracked the egg, right? The zero trust architecture. I think this is a great one, where this is a guideline that puts security policies that are based on contextual information, based on least privilege and strong authentication, really looking at the context of the identity. Who is this identity? Is it a human identity? Is it a machine identity? What's the location of the identity trying to access the resource? What device are they coming from? What network are they coming from? What is the resource that they're trying to access? Is it an application? Is it a file share, or documents, right? And making those types of contextual decisions before granting access, never assuming trust, right? So one of the key phrases is never trust, always verify. And these the zero trust architecture puts these policies in 5 main areas within your environment: identity, data, applications, network, and devices. So those are the 5 areas. So we have some really good sponsors here. And during the network break, I really encourage you to go to these sponsors and saying, how does your company help us achieve zero trust within our organization?
Not only that, they got great swag too. So
Yeah. And the second one would be the cybersecurity framework from NIST. I think implementing technology is just half of it, right? I think putting the right policies and the right processes is just as important, if not just as more important. And the cybersecurity frameworks are guidelines that provide processes on what to do during a threat incident, right? So the principles of the cybersecurity framework is it gives you the how-to guide on what to do when you are identifying a threat, when you are protecting, detecting, responding, and recovering from these threats. So I think with these 2 guidelines, I think as your organizations can take this as a baseline and best practices to be able to defend and respond to cyber threats in this very dynamic world that we live in today.
But you mentioned something, and this is really interesting, that a lot of things that they're out there, I mean, they're available. How do you determine the shaft from the gold?
Yeah. There's some great work which I collaborated with NIST. It's with their Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. And what they did is we brought 24 vendors and put them in a room for about 6 months. And we put use cases, we did how-to guides on how to actually implement zero trust. So we took all of these documents that NIST provided and all the zero trust, and we boiled it down to real life examples. And so you can look at NCCOE Zero Trust and you'll see their publication. But it shortens it, and it provides real life example on how you can actually implement these technologies.
You just hit the lottery. Right, Andrew?
The lucky numbers.
I love it. So, Stephen, what are some of Florida's cybersecurity training opportunities that are out there and or requirements for state, regional, and local government employees?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Kennedy. This is question right up our alley. As I mentioned, the law that changed in 2021 requiring us to do cyber audits. I remember being in my office at a different state agency prior to going to the Office of the Chief Inspector General and saying, oh, good, we have an IT auditor on staff there. This will be nothing I'll ever have to worry about cyber stuff. And it's 99% of my day, right? It feels like at least 99% of my day is cyber stuff. And I barely know a mouse from a monitor, right? But one of the things after that law passed, our Office of the Chief Inspector General adopted something that we call the Cyber Pathways Program, modeled after the NIST cyber excellence thing that Esteban just talked about. Esteban, by the way, that's when we call Esteban, my Spanish name is Esteban Enrique,
Yep.
which is a lot cooler person than Stephen Henry. So every now and then I want
So,
to.
refer me as Spanish Steve from
That's
now on.
right.
Yeah, Steve, we have Spanish. Steve.
That's right. That's right. So again, our Cyber Pathways program, and we are so proud of that. In fact, right now, my boss is in Washington, DC, accepting an award from the AGA about the work that has been done, international recognition. And again, not us, it is all the staff and the folks that have worked.
It's all a team.
Exactly. So wanted to make sure that I had some of these numbers correctly. Again, auditors, we care about those numbers. So since fall of 2021, and luckily with that change in the law, we were given $1 million from the Florida legislature to implement that. Now, that doesn't go very far, especially when you look at all of the things that we have to do in audit insurance. But anyway, since fall of 2021, we have trained a total of, let's see, I lost my place there, 489 personnel, right? So that is not just IG staff, right? Although it's primarily IG staff. That includes folks in the universities. That includes clerks of court. That includes city and county staff members. So yeah, we are very proud that we've done that. It's been a total of 15,278 hours that our office has been able to offer training sessions.
So this is where the IT actually does help.
Exactly, right. Yeah, we're here to help when people don't believe that. But yeah, we really, so it has not only helped us become a lot more versed in knowing what we're looking at, to know what compliance, and maybe some of the folks in the room might dispute that. But imagine where we were if we didn't have that training. But yes, that has helped us become a lot more versed in understanding what we're looking at there. I should also mention some of the entities that we partner with a lot here in the state of Florida. The entity called Cyber Florida. Hopefully everybody in the room is familiar with that, right? That they are run, again, primarily out of the University of South Florida, but free training offered to all local and state government employees. So that's really exciting things that they've done. Their classes kind of fall into the following categories: general staff courses, which is useful not just for the IT folks, but all of anyone who wants better cyber hygiene. Really sort of good stuff about how to avoid some of those phishing emails and things that one might get. They also offer executive courses for some of the leadership there. Industry certification prep courses. That's always exciting to be able to put letters behind your name, right? So they offer, again, some industry certification prep courses, technical courses, and cyber skills exercises. So again, I would invite everyone. I just looked this morning. There's upwards of 50 classes and courses that are offered between today and the end of the state fiscal year, June 30th. So
where do they find that?
yeah, that is us. I wrote down the website if my eyes are working now, right? It's cyberflorida.org is out there. So again, would invite everyone to look at those list of courses. Very simple to sign up. All they need to do is verify that you're a state or local government employee, and really interesting things. Some of the classes, like the certification classes, may already be full, and those fill up kind of quickly. But again, some of the exercises, I know exciting things now. A lot of people are excited about AI and what to do with that. Some of the courses there, some neat exercises there. And also would like to mention, again, our partners with Florida Digital Service. I don't know if we have any FLDS folks in the room or whatever. But again, they've been wonderful in making sure that we feel welcome, but sometimes maybe too welcome in the IG environment, that they offer courses at their collab there in the Sadowski building at Southwood. Again, those are also free and open to all state employees and also local employees. And in fact, they may not even be very strict if you're interested in cyber folks like my mother and father-in-law and are not an employee. They probably would let you in there. And then some of their courses, of course, are very cyber focused, like the one I just looked at their sessions for March, the history of DNS security. And they have other maybe cyber adjacent classes like conflict resolution and emotional intelligence. So yeah, exciting world.
That's unbelievable. That's fantastic.
And the price is right. Yeah.
So let me, well, let's add to that. Let me add to that. Have we seen an increase in cybersecurity awareness since the FDS mandated that training requirement? And, or is it too early to tell yet? You've got all the courses here, they're available.
Right, yeah.
Are you seeing results from it as the IG?
I would certainly say, you know, from an IG perspective, definitely yes, definitely yes. So again, like I said, I barely knew the difference between a mouse and a monitor in fall of 2021, and now sometimes I rattle off these NIST things like it's scary, right? Like, right? It's kind of annoying. I wonder what else has been pushed out of our brains that now we know all the cyber stuff, right? Director Jones, right? Like all these neat cyber things. I would also like to brag a little bit on some of the IG and some of the things that we've done there. That when this process started, there were only 6 CISAs in our IG community, which is about 300 folks. So from some of the training offered, we have gone from 6 to now upwards of 30, right? That have gone there. Again, maybe because I'm looking at her, Ms. Heifer, and some of the new folks that we've invited in the community. She's a CompTIA. I forget what specifically certification that she has, but yeah, we're so lucky that we have a pipeline of young folks. So
I'm gonna, and this, Matthew, I'm gonna jump to your next question when Steve's done, because
Sure.
this ties in.
No, I can be done.
So this is really interesting because we were talking about it before, and Andrew was talking about it, and Michelle were also talking about it, about finding this talent,
Right.
finding the talent and keeping it. You're getting it. It's coming in. So Matthew, I'm going to turn to you. Getting and keeping qualified professionals is a critical aspect of strengthening and securing our network. So the talent pool for IT, networking, especially cybersecurity, is always highly competitive. So what is being done to attract and maintain this talent with you? And maybe everybody wants to join in on this afterwards.
Sure. No, that's a great question. And, you know, the FBI is doing a lot to hire talent. I mean, cyber is the next wave that we're fighting. It is part of the number 2 priority for the FBI, which is counterintelligence, but counterintelligence incorporates cyber espionage. And then it's also the number 3 priority for the FBI. So hiring talent is very, very important. I'm sure you can imagine, you know, I have a super technical background, all this great technical stuff. That's actually not true. So like Stephen, really before getting into the FBI, I did not really know how to use a mouse or a keypad, right? But I joined the FBI from being in the military and then a police officer, and then worked my way through. Now the FBI does offer a lot of training. So I've taken training through the FBI. I've taken SANS courses to, you know, bring me up to speed with some of the more technical aspects of cyber. But ultimately, I'm an investigator. And so what I do is I investigate, but we have talented people. So we have some fantastic, you know, very technical people that work for us. So like on my cyber squad, I have 2 computer scientists that work on my squad. They are going to get into the weeds on breaking down malware, looking through images of servers that have been compromised, doing really technical stuff to make sure we have all the information to reverse engineer malware, and so we can put out good products to the private sector. We have digital operations specialists that help our computer scientists and do a lot of that same work. And then other things like building different platforms to help analyze and look through different sorts of data and things that we're working on with the FBI. We also have digital analysts. We have a new digital analyst on my squad, does fantastic work building, you know, taking information that our squads are getting, whether that's through legal process, voluntarily provided by a victim, and is able to use that data, put it in a format that allows our agents to look at it more succinctly and, you know, extract the relevant information from that data. So what's the FBI doing? I mean, we have some incentives. I looked at them. I'd love to be up here and say that the incentives themselves are great, but they're not. The FBI cannot compete with, you know, his company or the other companies back there against the wall. But what we have that I think really does pull people towards us. When I was talking to my digital analyst the other day, I said, all right, I looked at the incentives and sure we have stuff, but your signing on bonus of like $2,000 isn't going to really buy over people leaving. It was the mission, right? It was patriotism. It was the mission of the FBI. That's what brought him in. So he liked the mission. He was actually an intern for the FBI, so he got a chance to see what some of these technical positions did, how they were integrated in the overall mission of the FBI. And that ultimately was what brought him in. Another person on my squad who's an agent, he actually left the Bureau to take a private sector job because, unlike me, he did have a technical background, incredibly smart with cryptocurrency, and he went private sector. After 9 months of doing that, he said, this is great. The money was great. I like working at home. I end up working more hours than I thought I would at home, but the mission's just not there. I need to come back. And, you know, through a short process, almost a year, we were able to bring him back onto our squad, get his clearance back up, do all the things we had to do, and we brought him back. So I think those are some of the things on how the Bureau's bringing people in. There are, like I said, there are some incentives. If you are interested in one of these jobs, please get with me after. You know, I could point you in the direction, FBIjobs.gov, and you can see the incentives for the technical positions. But our mission is the one thing that, you know, is fantastic and what keeps people working for the FBI.
You know, you brought up a couple of things, and one of the things I know, it's really hard within the federal government, military, whatever, to keep these cyber professionals that are coming in. It is a mission. It has to be there, and it has to be the family, the overall atmosphere of we are a team, and it's that teammanship that builds it and does it. But there's also something that a lot of it is payback, where the funding of the education resources that part of that is a payback of year to year. Now the thing is, you get some great raw smart talent that's come in directly done, but after their commitment is over, that 2-year commitment or the 3-year commitment, however long it is, maintaining them is what your job is. That's your job. Do you find that to be hard, or do you find it to be easier? In other words, does it kind of grow on them, or is it a difficult task for you?
So I personally haven't had to deal with people leaving. I knew the couple people that I knew within the FBI that left to go private sector have returned to the FBI since then. I know that there are others who haven't. So I'm not going to sit up here and say like, oh, everyone who leaves the FBI realizes that the grass isn't greener on the other side and they come back. But like the Bureau does have some incentives. Some of the training that you talked about earlier, you know, we offer SANS training. You can get your CISP certification and get that paid for. We have some reimbursement for your tuition and payback for student loans that you may have. So there are incentives that the FBI has to keep some of these talented people within our ranks.
Yeah, that's great. So Esteban, turn to you. What is software-defined segmentation? What are its benefits, and how can it lead to strengthening cybersecurity today and in the future?
Yeah, so network-defined segmentation is it's a practice where you isolate individuals or a group of resources in unique networks. So you'll see organizations put either different offices in their own networks or different regions or departments. And what this allows you to do is to contain your resources in a specific network. And the way that they communicate with other networks or other departments is through intelligent switches or routers or next generation firewalls. And these incoming traffics, they get interrogated every time that one network wants to talk to another network. So from a benefit perspective, number one, you increase your network security posture. You could see a lot of simplifications in terms of management. But I think the most important one is it reduces your attack surface. So if for some reason one of your networks gets compromised, it's really difficult for a bad actor or an attacker to infiltrate another network because of this isolation. So what this means for you all as you go back to your organizations and you're in these meetings, you know, it's good to bring some of these technologies to be able to reduce, again, the attack surface that, you know, malicious actors can infiltrate our network.
I think it's a kind of what Jay Roby was talking about earlier, is that because you gain one piece of the puzzle doesn't mean that you can get the whole, you don't get the other pieces of the puzzle, and therefore you're still protected. You're held within. Great answer. I appreciate that. So Steve, this is kind of gonna be an interesting, how do we inventory, track, monitor, update, and secure devices that our teams utilize for the performance of their jobs, both internal and external to the network perimeter? I mean, how do you, this is something you look at as the IG.
Sure.
How do we effectively do that?
Right. Yeah. I before getting to that question, wanted to also echo some of what we were talking about retaining talent
Yeah.
and again the pay is terrible in state government. Right. We have some stats that noted that IT auditors, folks who are doing IT audits in these state agencies, when we did the survey of when this happened, that the salary ranged from 45,000 to about 78,000. Private IT auditors, according to Indeed.com, make about $98,000. So again, even at our highest level, we cannot compete with the private sector, and the work hours are terrible too. Right, the pay is terrible. The work hours are even worse. But we really
Follow me for more
Yeah,
advice.
yeah. But we do say thank you a lot. Hopefully we say thank you, right? Like I can't, but it is interesting work, right? Very interesting work, and that's why we stay and wanting to make the agencies that we work for better. To your question though, it reminds me when I first started, an external audit entity they were doing a review of some of the identity controls over a very important system we had at a previous agency I worked for. And it noted that more than half of the folks in that agency had what was called hand of God access, right? Super. And yeah, that was too many, right? That's not right. More central to your question though, I sometimes feel that because when we start these audits, sometimes I am rather naive as to the area that we're looking at. Our audit topic for next year will be asset management. Yeah, right. Yay, fun. So I'm really excited to kind of delve into that. We have seen, based on a risk assessment that was performed at all state agencies, that asset management and knowing what we have, right, it is a real struggle.
And that's the point that
Exactly. So but you really probably don't need that private contractor that I think the work that we do in audit brings so much value, again, back to identity and access management, that some of the work that our IT staff had done there and some of the things that we saw about lack of MFA on agency systems, not doing periodic access reviews, the value that you all added as part of that process was off the charts, right? More than any private contractor was able to do when those folks come in there. So I'm very excited about what we will see and what we will uncover as part of that enterprise asset management audit for next year. So
I imagine, especially some of our vendors that are here today, there are tools out there to help us with our access, with our management of our tools and our assets that are out there. Esteban, I'm sure you're aware of some and others. So would you recommend that we look at automating that capability more so that, I mean, it used to be you would register serial number and you'd keep this hard copy list. I don't think that you can't do that anymore. I don't know, Matthew, do you see that's not an efficient way of doing it, is it? The way to do it now is to automate what's on your network and what's out there. Is that what you're looking for from the IT perspective, Steve?
Yes, sir. Yeah, right. As our folks are, I know our state CISO said again, asset management is not the same as inventory management. And some of the tools out there, we especially in our area, we try to be vendor agnostic. Although we appreciate all of our vendors back there, and I'm interested in getting the swag when I'm done talking, right? But we try to be a little vendor agnostic. But yeah, some of the tools that our vendor friends offer here, that is the next steps, right?
So a lot of this also falls into Esteban, your next question is the identity and access management. I mean, they're key to the zero trust, what we're talking about before, and emerging government programs that are there. So what are you looking for in identity, credentialing, and access management for things as well as persons, okay, connecting to your network?
Yeah, we started talking about this earlier, but one of the biggest shifts that we're seeing as an IT organization is we need to meet the user where they're at, right? Regardless of the device, regardless of the application and network that they're accessing the resources. I'll give you an example. I know that a lot of us are, tasked or being pressured to move our data centers to the cloud, right? It's a big push for a lot of reasons. And when you look at, organizations like Google Cloud or AWS, Azure, identity is really the first line of defense to protecting these environments, these data centers in the cloud. If you have one of your users that are in the wrong group, in the wrong role in your data center in the cloud, they might have access to the wrong resources to be able to turn off your entire cloud or do damage, right? If you have a virtual machine that's on the wrong group, on the wrong role, and they have access to more services than they really need, if that virtual machine gets compromised, an attacker can then start laterally moving across your cloud data center. So how you protect your identities is really important to your security posture. So one of the things you need to be asking yourselves or as an organization is, how am I doing that? How am I inventorying all of the digital identities within my organization? How am I looking at what access do they have across all of the different applications, right? In terms of SharePoint, Zoom, Slack, Office 365, right? What's the access do I have? And then what are some of the automations? You talked about it, right? How do I make sure that when someone comes into the agency, we're giving them exactly and only the access that they need to do their job? As they move through the organization, make sure that we're turning off the access that they no longer need. And we see this a lot in not just state and local, but federal and DoD, where you have someone who's been with the agency 10 plus years. When you look and audit their access, they have so much access that's been accrued across their decade-long service that if those accounts get compromised, that's a lot of access that a malicious actor can have access to. We also see in a lot of these agencies where users that are no longer part of the agency, well, they have still live accounts in some of those systems, right? They've never been turned off. So going back to the automation, we need tools to help us automate this access. And the last thing I'll finish is at SailPoint, one of the things that we understand is doing this has really expanded over human capacity, and we're starting to invest and put out technology for you all to start leveraging AI and machine learning to automatically detect these risks, giving us answers to say, hey, look at these 20 users. They have access to applications that none of their peers have access, right? No one in their department have access to these sites in SharePoint or to these documents. So proactively giving agencies these outliers and anomalies, and then provide the automated tools to remove this access. So those are some of the things that I see being some of the challenges and some of the ways that we're helping agencies remediate some of this over provisioned access.
So that's really cool. You're kind of looking at automating privileged access management. Matthew, so how does the FBI respond to a cyber incident? What does it look like?
I think a lot of people here would probably expect to see 4 blacked out Suburbans, red and blue lights, pulling up
CSI.
to your organization. Yep. FBI agents jumping out with their 5'11" cargo pants and FBI raid jackets, computer in one hand and go bag in the other, and running into your business. That's not it. That was the episode of FBI Most Wanted that I watched last night. So an FBI response to a cyber incident is a lot different than what you would probably expect. We're aware that your own IT knows your network better than we know your network. So an FBI response really looks a lot like us communicating with the victim, finding out what they need, providing services that we can offer, receiving information from them or their, if they have an IR firm coming in to help them, receiving reports from them and then tracking down the evidence from that. I could kind of go through like a few typical violations and incidents that we get pretty often and kind of let you know what it actually looks like for a better understanding. So, one of the big things that we've been impacted with are business email compromises. So, this is going to be your email that says, hey, this is the CEO. You need to do this payment. I'm not in the office right now, so please just get this done and get this sent out. For that type of incident, one, we would recommend reaching out very quickly to ic3.gov and filing a report. Is everyone familiar with the Internet Crimes Complaint Center? Okay, so for financial crimes, we recommend going to that immediately, filling it out with as much information as you can, to include, importantly, the bank accounts for the account that it came from and the account that the wire was going to. We have a recovery asset team that combs through our IC3 complaints every single day, and they are looking for these type of incidents, and they have set up relationships with some of the major banks across the US and some foreign banks. So if you get that type of information to IC3 quickly within a few days, there's a good chance that the recovery asset team, we call it the RAT, but they'll be able to enact the financial kill chain and freeze your money before it gets converted to crypto or into a country that we're not able to get it back. There was a company here in Tallahassee last year that was victimized with a business email compromise and lost over $1 million through 3 wire transactions. They reached out to the FBI. They reported it to IC3 quickly. And we were able to recover all of their money for that victim and get it returned to their banks. So that, I think, is a success. Now, we're still working with that company, and we worked with their IR to get the information and intelligence about how the actors were able to get in, how they compromised the email, and we're working through that. Another type of incident that we're all aware of is ransomware. So for ransomware incidents, I think it would be best for me to start with how the FBI looks at these cases. So you think about the FBI and you think, all right, they're going to have a field office in a location. Our field office is in Jacksonville. Jacksonville field office covers all the way out to Pensacola and down to Daytona Beach. So we have a pretty big area. We're going to work matters that impact that area. And that is the case for a lot of things. But with cyber, we realized that you could have a victim that's in California, a victim that's in New York, a victim that's in Florida. And we had FBI field officers that were working the same investigations at different points. And we realized this isn't the best way for us to investigate these types of incidents. So we created basically field offices that became subject matter experts. So for a ransomware, we'll look at a variant, and one office will take the prime, focus on that ransomware variant. And so when we get a report of a ransomware, we're going to look at the variant, we're going to get the information from the victim, identify the field, if it is under investigation already, we're going to reach out to that field office. We're going to get information from them about anything that we could pass to the victim that might help them. Like I mentioned before, sometimes that even includes a decryption key. So I'm sure you guys heard of the Hive ransomware. That was taken down last year. That was one that we had the key for probably about 6 months before the takedown. And we were able to save victims money by providing them the key and decrypting their information before they resorted to paying the victim. So that is what we can do with ransomware. A slightly different would be, and you touched on this a little bit with, access and companies getting rid of access when people leave or are fired, is the insider threat. There's a number of times where I've been involved with investigations of individuals who are working in IT, they were disgruntled, they were getting, knew that their time with that company was coming to an end and decided to create additional admin access before they left. And then once they left, they would do something to disrupt a business. You could look in the news, there was somebody just convicted last month in the Jacksonville area for hacking into the Jumbotron at Jack Stadium. It turned out to be an employee, former employee. Again, the stadium was able to provide us with the information logs, who they believed it was. We used our legal process that we had to firm up all the information. We worked with a prosecutor at the United States Attorney's Office, and we were able to get an indictment and arrest that individual, and now they're going to be serving jail. So that's for an insider threat, how we can help there. The next thing I'd go into is, you're looking at sometimes nation state adversaries that might be targeting critical infrastructure. Those cases are worked very similar to how we work ransomware, where we'll have specific offices that become subject matter experts on these APT groups. And kind of same thing. With these, one thing I'll say is, instead of the victim coming to the FBI, it's typically the FBI seeing it before and going to the victim and letting them know, hey, you should probably look at this, or we believe your company may be compromised by this group. And then we'll go through, again, we'll provide IOCs, we'll help the company out. If it's a severe enough breach, we have a cyber action team that has some of the most talented agents and professional staff that the Bureau has that can actually deploy out to a company. It's one of the rare times that we might send a team out to a company to help them out, because we have such good information on these advanced persistent threats that they're able to dig through, find where the actor was, see how they moved laterally, and help the company, help us get the information and evidence that we need, but help the company remediate their network.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to our guests, Matthew Belovko, Stephen Henry, and Esteban Soto. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Caracast, and be sure to listen to our other discussions. If you'd like more information on how Carasoft can assist your organization, please visit www.carasoft.com or email us at slgmarketing@carasoft.com. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day.